there was a question towards Bernie Sanders about, a lot of trans people being murdered in the U.S., especially trans people of color, in particular African American trans people. Sanders talked about how we needed to have moral leadership in the White House around this issue, bringing people together. And he also brought it back to, everybody having access to health care, so Medicare for all, and, because it would include all people and really benefit them. And then Elizabeth Warren, kind of an interesting response. She talked about going every year to the Rose Garden to read the names of the, I guess, trans people that were killed this year or something like that. It was kind of a weird response to me. I don't know. And then a question was towards Joe Biden about the Afghan papers and, how the military or the U.S. government has kind of misled the American people about the Afghan war since it basically started. And then he said he fought, when he was in, the Obama administration as VP, he fought the nation-building idea that the Pentagon was pushing, and he always thought, in Afghanistan we should have a anti-terrorism policy. He talked about bringing our troops home, but not all of them. He wants to leave some special troop forces there in Afghanistan, so that was subpar response in my opinion. We need to bring all of them back. And then after that response, one of the moderators kind of pushed back at Joe Biden, and then he said he didn't support the troop surge in Afghanistan. And then Bernie goes next, and he says that, but Joe Biden, my good friend Joe, you actually, he kept referring to him as his good friend. It's kind of funny that Biden actually did support the Iraq war, and Bernie, takes this to its logical conclusion and talked about how we need to rethink this whole war on terror. U.S. troops have been killed abroad, hundreds of thousands of civilians, both in Iraq and Afghanistan and many other countries have been killed. We got to end these endless wars, address the root causes, remove all troops first year. Boom, Bernie, you got it, my man. Buttigieg, we got to leave well. He was talking about when he was in Afghanistan, I believe, that he thought he was going to be one of the last soldiers there. Got to have some type of presence. We got to get rid of the AUMF, have a sunset clause on, declarations of war. So similar to Biden, he wants to leave some troops in Afghanistan. Let's see. And then a question from Tim Alberta from Politico was about healthcare, getting Medicare for all passed, something like that. What if, what are you going to do about Congress? Bernie responds, how we pay 2 times more per capita for healthcare than, basically every other developed country. 87 million people in the United States are either underinsured or have no insurance at all. That's, a huge chunk of the population, leading to bankruptcies. We got to take on big pharma and the for-profit health insurance companies. We gotta, make healthcare comprehensive to include eyeglasses, dental care. And then the moderator clapped back for a question for Joe Biden. Is it realistic? Can we really make sure people aren't dying because they don't have health care? Or can we, really make sure that people don't go bankrupt because they don't have, enough health care and they get seriously sick or injured? And then Biden says, we got to build on the ACA, pre-existing conditions. Don't take that away. Public option. And then he told Bernie to put his hand down because Bernie wanted to respond. And then Bernie claps back with the perfect response. Joe Biden, my good friend Joe Biden, you just want to retain the status quo. We got to, eliminate the for-profit profiteering off of people's health, and then we gotta have Medicare for all because it drastically lowers administration costs, which it does, which would save money right there. And then Joe Biden comes back with the neoliberal right-wing centrist talking point. It's gonna cost $30 trillion over 10 years. Bernie, not honest. And then Bernie talks about how having Medicare for all would eliminate all out-of-pocket expenses, so there'd be no deductibles, copays, premiums, none of that stuff. It's all free at the point of service. And Joe Biden, that 30 trillion over 10 years, you would actually be saving, I believe it's like 5 trillion over that time period. So you got your stuff wrong again. Klobuchar talk about we got to be progressive and practical. We got to have a public option. Fight is not real. The fight is with the House. We got to build a bridge, come together for this, right-wing type of healthcare plan. We got to build a bridge so people will still die and go bankrupt, but we got to build that bridge. And then Bernie talked about, we got to fight greed and corruption and big pharma and health insurance industry, healthcare for all people, not massive profits for big pharma and big health insurance. And then Warren, again, with her pivot, seems like she used to be more in support of Medicare for all. Now she's talking about a public option. You opt in at low cost. And then this was just the last question. Let me see. Yep. And then one of the last questions was something about around the holidays. Do you want to apologize to somebody, or is there a gift you would like to give? Yang talked about giving copies of his books to the candidates on stage. Buttigieg talked about rallying around, each other at the end because we all kind of have the same goals in mind as far as, beating Donald Trump and having a Democrat in the White House, but that's actually not true. A lot of your views are diametrically opposed to, let's say, Bernie Sanders. Warren said that she would ask forgiveness. Sometimes she gets worked up and hot, and that she maybe gets a little carried away, and that she hears stories during her selfies about people having to, ration insulin, and that, really, affects her hearing those things. And Biden, like, I've taken thousands of selfies too. And then people are telling him that he can help, or people are asking him if he could help him, and Biden says that he gives out his private phone number and to help young men and women. And then again, the best answer came from Sanders, I think. He talked about giving a gift to the American people, different vision than what Trump represents. We got to govern the nation through love and compassion, not hatred and greed. It's like, boom, what an excellent just synthesis right there, Bernie. And then he ties it back to a living wage, Medicare for all, free college, bringing the working class together, just tying it all in so perfectly. Just put a nice little bow on it, Bernie. And Klobuchar talked about, decency, making sure we're patriotic, kids. This is just the most ridiculous point to bring up. It's like Klobuchar was talking about how kids shouldn't have to mute their TV because Donald Trump's on it. It's like, really? That's where you're going? Really? Come on. Steyer. The Republicans are cruelty to working people. Got to give the gift and teamwork to get rid of this corrupt president. And then the closing, Steyer went first, bringing back power to the people, term limits, which we already have for the president. I'm not sure where he was going with that. He talked about how he built up a big business and he can take on Trump on the economy. It's a nonsense answer in my opinion. Yang, this is pretty decent. We got to solve the problems that got Trump elected. The country's falling apart. There's high rates of suicide, depression, but there's record corporate profit. So pretty decent response by Andrew Yang there. Klobuchar, I want to take the debate to Trump. My grandpa was a coal miner. Trump inherited millions of dollars. He is entitled. We got to unite. And another nonsense answer, both from Steyer and Klobuchar. Buttigieg, we got to beat Trump, unite the country, belonging in the future, and more just word salad. Warren, hopeful heart, Her brothers in the military are retired. They hate that, but they hate that Amazon paid no taxes. Got to enact a wealth tax, expand Social Security and disability. She's here for everyone, so not the best, but not the worst. Kind of a middling closing, in my opinion. Then we're next on to Bernard. Got to bring up low wages. We got to have real change from the bottom up. Perfect, bringing it back to power and class consciousness. The real powers and change is going to come from the bottom up, not the top down. That's pretty good. Talked about how his campaign already has 1 million volunteers, the most contributions of any political campaign in U.S. history. We got to defeat Trump and transform the country. It's pretty good, Bernie. And then Biden, Crazy Uncle Joseph was the last one with their closing. Who can deliver to beat Trump? Help elect other Senate Democrats. Got to get stuff done. Tell the truth. God bless you. Thank you for having me. So pretty weak. I think the best closing was probably from Bernie and Yang. And let's just go kind of overall. Who did the best? Who did the worst? So we'll start off at the top. I would say Bernie had the best debate performance out of the 7 candidates, and there was a kind of a Frank Luntz did one of those polls or focus group after, I should say, and I think it was 6 or 7 out of 14 people supported Bernie before, and that number jumped up quite substantially after. So it seems like the general public kind of came to the same consensus that I did, that Bernie had the best debate performance out of everybody. He had some really good points that he made about healthcare and foreign policy vis-a-vis Israel and Palestine, and just very clear and consistent. Next up, I would probably rate Andrew Yang in second. He had really good response with about people living with disabilities, and that humans have inherently intrinsic value even if they aren't making money in the economy. That was pretty good. He talked about deindustrialization and loss of manufacturing jobs and all the problems that led to Trump. So he also had a pretty solid debate performance. Next, I would probably say Elizabeth Warren. She made a few pretty decent points here and there. She had a good back and forth exchange with Pete Buttigieg, calling out him for his campaign corruption. So that was pretty decent. But then some of her responses were a little bit long-winded, in my opinion. So she could have done better. She could have done worse. So I would have her ranked at third. Fourth, probably, I guess. Who we have left? We have Steyer, Klobuchar. Is there only 6? Yeah, so next I would probably give it to, I don't know, just Biden out of default. He didn't have any huge gaffes. I mean, at one point he did say that Winston Churchill was a former leader of the United States, which obviously he wasn't, and a few things here and there. But for Joe Biden standards, I think he had a pretty good debate, which is kind of unfortunate for the rest of us. That means he'll stay in the the primary a little longer. So I'd give Biden fourth. Fifth, I would probably give to Klobuchar. I mean, she just, kind of narrated typical neoliberal centrist position. I didn't find her, convincing in any way, and just talked about, I live in Minnesota. It's not flyover country. We got to take this stuff seriously. So it's like, no, you didn't I don't think you convinced anybody. You did have a nice purple outfit though. That was pretty cool. And then next, I'd probably give Steyer the sixth spot. Again, not offering anything that's overall very um, convincing or exciting. The only reason you're up there is because you're a billionaire and you can, fund your campaign with your massive wealth. You did talk about making climate, a priority, which is good. You also talked about taking on Trump on the economy, but because you're a business person, but I didn't find that very convincing. So not super good performance from Steyer. And then last, Pete Buttigieg. I just felt like he offered in a lot of his responses just a lot of word salad, a lot of talk about unity and coming together, but no real progressive platform to back up that rhetoric. And I think Elizabeth Warren did a pretty good job calling you out on your campaign's corruption and having those $900 bottles of wine at your fundraisers in this, wine cave. And you talked about, purity tests are a bad thing and how you don't want to have one hand tied behind your back. But it's like, no, a lot of people see that as just, being corrupt, and you're willing to do whatever it takes to get elected no matter the cost. So that's why you got the last spot. So I know this one and the first one, a bit of a long video, so I'm going to divide them up. I would love to hear your thoughts. What are your rankings? Who do you think did the best in the debate? Who do you think did the worst? Were there any moments in particular that stood out to you? And also, how do you think the moderators did in this debate? I thought, almost all of their questions had a very centrist or right-wing framing to them, which is to, be expected when it's from, when it's being put on by the establishment in the status quo. They're going to want to protect that, obviously. So those are my thoughts. I would love to hear yours in the comment sections down below. Peace.